Okay. I'm glad you guys joined. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Guys, this is a very important topic, very, very important topic that will literally help you succeed in life. So self-awareness is a very important self-awareness development is very vital to success and survival. And you can't even imagine how important that this topic is. And I'm glad you guys joined to listen as I kind of like help you all. This is like a mentoring session, guys, and it's available for not just students, even adults, people across the spectrum, working class people, stay-at-home people. At some point in time, there is a need for you to improve in certain things that you do, and that need to improve on certain things that you do is what will, prompt you to at some point to sit down and say to yourself, what is it that I'm not doing right? Or what is it that I'm not doing right that I can change to improve where I am at the moment? And that can be as simple as just maybe sitting up and having that honest conversation with yourself. You guys are in college, and I know you're growing up and you need mentorship. You need people talking to you guys and explaining to you guys how life is for real and how to succeed in life, how to survive in the workforce. As you guys are in college and going to leave, how to grow spiritually, how to grow mentally, emotionally, socially. Those are important aspects of life that becoming aware of yourself is very paramount. And so before I even continue, what do you think self-awareness is? Who is going to be bold enough to answer that question?
Be aware of your surroundings.
Hmm?
Being aware of your surroundings.
Okay, being aware of your surrounding. Okay, that's a good answer. All right, very good. Being aware of your surrounding. Okay, all right. Um, who else wants to try and tell us what they think is in your own turn?
It's knowing how to be like I'll be able to communicate with others
Mhm.
who have different like background stuff.
Hmm. Okay. Very good. Knowing how to communicate. So communicates, right? Very,
Yeah.
very good. And Rachel said environment. Very good. All right. Emmanuel, how would you define in your words what self-awareness is?
Someone's point of view on something.
Your point of view about something, right?
Hmm.
That's a great answer too. Great answer. So your perception of something, right?
Hmm.
And those aspects of self-awareness, you already said very important key points about self-awareness. But I want you to start understanding self-awareness is actually, just as the name implies, self is talking about self. How do you perceive yourself? I know, Rachel, you talked about environment. Absolutely. That's one aspect of it. But the main thing about self-awareness is, just as the name implies, self is what do you think? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Okay. There's nobody else that can define who you think you are except yourself. You have to define, you have to sit down and say, who am I, basically? All right. And then when you know who you are, nobody else can tell you who you are. Now, mind you, another way also you can know who you are is listening to maybe 2 or 3 people and what they say about you. But at the long run, what you say about yourself is the most important aspect of self-awareness. And if you don't know something about you, then you will allow society or somebody else define who you are. When I ask you, what is self-awareness? Self-awareness simply means the ability to recognize that you are a separate entity, that you are different from other people, that Rachel, you're different from Emmanuel, Emmanuel, you're different from Philip, Philip, you're different from Emmanuel. That is self-awareness, knowing that you are unique. And in that uniqueness, you are also assessing your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own belief. All right? So it is also an ability for you to use your senses and experiences. Your senses meaning what you see, what you in here, and how and what you feel, and your experiences to understand your emotions, and how the environment impacts or affects your emotion. In that way, you can make choices. Does that make sense? In that way, you can make effective choices. If you don't understand who you are or how the environment affects who you are, you might not be able to make good choices. What you need to realize about self-awareness is that there's 2 types of self-awareness. We have the private self-awareness and we have the public self-awareness. Private self-awareness is what you think about yourself. Again, we've talked about it. Like let me take, for instance, myself. I'll look at myself, I'll say, I know I'm a very compassionate person. I know I'm a very forgiving person. I know I am beautifully and wonderfully made by God. I know I am intelligent. I know I am smart. I know I am kind. I know I am patient. I know I'm very forgiving. I know I'm very inspiring. I know I'm very passionate about what I do, and I encourage people. That is an aspect of self-awareness, knowing who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, somebody else will tell you. Somebody else will tell you, you're so rude. Somebody will tell you, you're not pay. But if you know who you are, whatever somebody says again doesn't make any sense. I know that I'm hardworking. I know that I'm brilliant. I know that I'm smart. Stuff like that. You say it to yourself. You self-affirm yourself. So that when you say it within yourself, it doesn't matter what happens around you or outside you will change awareness. Public awareness is what other people perceive you to be. Okay? And also how you carry yourself outside also is public awareness. Take, for instance, okay, if you say yourself you're a smart person and you say you're a kind person, when you go out there, portray that. You see what I'm saying? And you're a compassionate person. When you go out there, try to be empathetic. Try to express that in the way you interact with people. Yourself, you are reflecting that in how you deal with people outside. Does that kind of make sense? So that is the public awareness, okay? And this is very, very, very important. Now, when it comes to definition of self-concept is an idea of the self constructed from the beliefs one holds about oneself and the responses of others. So you see what I'm saying? See how I brought it? How the private self-awareness and the public self-awareness come together to form what? Concept. Yeah, self-concept, absolutely. And self-concept, again, is you yourself will form that. You will form that for yourself. You create it, nobody else. Is you. What you put out and what you think in yourself, you are the one that will create it, not somebody else. Like one day you cannot create it for Emmanuel. Emmanuel cannot create it for you. Rachel, I cannot create it for you. Your dad cannot create it for any of you, right? You form that, all right? So that is why it is important for you to understand the difference between self-awareness, self-concept, and how you can, you are responsible to forming that. Now, there's another aspect of awareness that can be viewed in a negative connotation. There's one called self-consciousness. Okay? Self-consciousness is not self-awareness. Self-consciousness is when you have too much or undue awareness of oneself, one's appearance, or one's action. And this can be crippling. So when you exaggerate, when you do too much, when you're too consumed about yourself, that it cripples you. You see what I'm saying? So take, for instance, you look at yourself, you're like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm so, afraid of public speaking. I'm so afraid of public speaking that I won't even, venture into it. Or when I go out to speak, I might make a mistake or whatever. No, I'm not going to do it. And then it cripples you. You see what I'm saying? That's his self-consciousness. But you can break out of that saying, yes, it's okay that I can make mistake, but I'm not going to let that fear of public speaking cripple me. You see what I'm saying? That is self-awareness. Self-awareness is when you say, yes, I understand I am afraid of public speaking, right? Right? But I'm going to do something to change it. I'm going to prepare more so that when I go out there, I might not make mistakes. And even if I make a mistake, it's okay. I can grow from it. Does that make sense? This is where your self-awareness is helping you versus your self-awareness or self-consciousness crippling you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's good to know self-awareness, self-concept, and self-consciousness. Self-consciousness is the bad one, right? So I'm going to play this short video for you guys. Hopefully it plays why it is important, why self-awareness is super important, because you're going to need this in your personal and in your professional life, okay? So let me see if I can play this.
What's one thing I'm doing wrong that I know I'm doing wrong that I could fix, that I would fix?
Can you hear?
Of understanding my inadequacies or someone's inadequacies. I really believe that it's really difficult to undergo self-development if you don't have self-awareness. And I was really trying to understand from your writings how someone is to build their self-awareness. It's almost like the unknown unknown. If you don't have it, how do you build the thing?
I know a good exercise for that. It's like a prayer in some sense. In fact, I would say it's proper prayer. If you want to know something about yourself, sit on your bed one night and say to yourself, you got to mean this. Like, you got to be desperate. This is no game, this. It's like, my life is not everything I want it to be. And perhaps it's not everything that I need it to be. And by need, I mean, my life is so unbearable that the suffering that's attendant upon that is make me nihilistic, cynical, bitter, resentful, homicidal, genocidal, unable to have a good relationship, prone to punish people for their virtues because of my jealousy, driving the proclivity to see evil everywhere except within my own heart. Like, these are problems, man. And you ask yourself, you sit on the bed and say, okay, man, I'm ready to learn something. Like, what's one thing I'm doing wrong that I know I'm doing wrong that I could fix, that I would fix? It's like, you meditate on that, you'll get an answer. And it won't be one you want, but it'll be the necessary one. And it's often something that will point you to small things. So Carl Jung said, people in the modern world don't see God because they don't look low enough. And so imagine you're in your messy bedroom, and you're sitting on the edge of the bed trying to have an honest dialogue with yourself. And the little voice says, it's pretty disgusting in here. And you think, well, I'm way above such trivial niceties as organizing my room. It's like, well, that's pride. That's arrogance. If you're above organizing what's actually yours, how in the world are you ever going to organize anything else? And so you get on your knees and you think, well, it's time to, take a brush to the toilet. And maybe that's where you start. And that works. Like that works. You start making those micro improvements, like real micro improvements, real on the ground, actual micro improvements to things you know that are wrong. You'll improve unbelievably rapidly.
Okay. Does that kind of make sense? Put it into perspective why is important,
Mhm.
right? So I came across that video. I was like, this is really neat. This is really something I can bring to you guys and have you guys experience or listen to this man and know how important self-awareness is. It's all about identifying what is wrong. Basically, well, not only what is wrong, your strengths and your weaknesses, and knowing what to do about it. If you're identifying your strengths, use it to impact the world out there. If you identify a weakness, change it. You know what I'm saying? Change it. Don't beat yourself down about it. Just change it. I know change is difficult to do, but you can start somewhere because the earlier you become aware of who you are, know who God said you are. So the next thing we're going to go into now will be, how am I going to make this change? How am I going to develop self-awareness? And I want you all to remember this acronym or this mnemonics. That mnemonics is called ATRCT. What did I say?
Correct.
ATRCT. In that ATRCT, how many letters are in ATRCT?
7.
Okay. Remove the first T after the A at the beginning. Remove the first T and remove the A between R and C. What do you have? You have ATRCT. Those are the 5 letters in the mnemonics I want you to remember as you're trying to build self-awareness. The first A, let's go into it, is called assessment. Remember, we talked about you are the one that is going to figure out who you are, right? Not me. I'm not going to tell you. I can tell you and help you because this is how my son is different. This is how my son Philip is different from my son Emmanuel. This is how my daughter Rachel is different from Emmanuel and Philip. This is how this nurse is different from this nurse. You know what I'm saying? You, at the end of the day, will have to sit down and assess, really think, who am I? Ask yourself that question. So the first letter in that acronym, ATRCT, is A, meaning assessment. Learn yourself. When you learn yourself, the next exercise you're going to do is to ask 2 people that are close to you, one and Rachel. Philip, Emmanuel, you can ask them, what is it about me? What do you think about me? Inside yourself and say, I think this is really true. When you think about, but by that time you have already assessed yourself. In that way, what people say sometimes would kind of tend to mirror exactly who you are. And if it's a positive one, hold on to those positives. If it's a negative one or a weakness or a vulnerability, try to change it. If you don't change it, remember what that guy said in the video? Even when it comes to you making your bed or changing it, he's like, I don't care about it. That is pride. That is arrogance. That's not taking responsibility. You see what I'm saying? And that can affect you. If you can't make changes in the little things, the big things will even be hard for you to make changes. So the first thing is assessment. Assess, know who you are, know what know who you are, and use cues that you get from others to balance and weigh yourself and see, is this for real? Is this really who I am? Okay. That's number 1, assessment. Number 2 is T, The T is triggers. Triggers. Recognize what your triggers are. What triggers you? What triggers you? Being ignored or being talked about. How would you overcome that? Did I overcome that? Going into my deeper inner self, knowing that God will never ignore me. God is there with me. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if that's your trigger. Know who you are. I'm a child of God. God loves me. God is there for me. God says he will never leave me nor forsake me. That is my way of overcoming these triggers. You see what I'm saying? So knowing your word, it might be prayer. Prayer can be another way to, fight your triggers. Validating who yourself, I think that's what I've said, venting your unpleasant feelings to someone you trust. So again, to someone you trust. Go ahead, don't bottle up that feeling. Go ahead and talk about that trigger, what triggers you. And get out from it as quickly as possible, which is the next step. Remember, find out your triggers and do what? Recognize it, okay? The R is regulate. Learn to regulate. Regulate those negative emotions. It's important that you regulate right away. Regulate those negative emotions. Change or switch that negative emotion with something positive. If you've been triggered, go for a walk. If you feel talking to yourself will not be enough, go for a walk, meditate, pray, talk to somebody, that you trust, and regulate that negative emotion. So negative emotion can be something like anger, fear, etc. Whatever your negative emotion is, find it, regulate it. The C part on that ATRCT is control. Now, remember the first one, regulate. Something has happened, right? And you're reacting by replacing it with something positive. Then this next aspect is called control. Control is more of a proactive, trying to preventing something that will trigger you. So how do you prevent this inner negative persona from affecting you in life? How do you do it? You gotta think, talk aloud, talk loud, dwell more on your positives. Dwell more on your positives. I repeat, dwell more on your positives, okay? So let those positives overshadow the negatives, okay? So like I told you on my positive, I know I'm a loving person, I'm a caring person, I'm a selfless person, authentic, kind, trustworthy, humble, confident, compassionate, encouraging, passionate, outgoing. That's my positives. You find your positive, Rachel. You find your positive, Philip. You find your positive, Emmanuel, and replace it with any negativity you have seen in you. Everybody has it. Everybody has it, and replace it. Let your good outshine. Does that make sense? In that way, you can control your negative emotion from getting the better part of you. Now, the last piece is T. Tame. T means tame. Tame, meaning tame your physical appearance. Tame your physical being. What does that mean? If you look up tame means train. Remember how they said the wild animals, you cannot tame them, right? Right? Use that word tame. Sometimes you can use the word train, okay? Train your physical appearance. Train your physical persona. What do I mean by that? The visible parts of your being, such as your voice, your posture, your clothing, or how you walk, should let it give the impression you want to give out there. Let me give you an example. Every time I come to work, do you know what they call me? They call me Fabulous Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis, you're always looking on point. You're always looking on point. I'm like, yeah, that's how my mom taught me. And you know what? This is not just in one place. Everywhere that I work, they always notice that. They always say that. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because I feel good about myself. I'm very confident about myself. And I let the way I present myself in public show that, so that it will be reflected. You see what I'm saying? So be mindful of your physical, the way you talk. Make sure you talk with confidence. You talk like you are unique. You talk, you are an intelligent person. You talk like you're a confident person, and nobody can take it away from you, because this is who you are. Then when you say I'm confident, let it be seen in your physical, in how you express yourself, in how you dress, in how you walk, in how you interact with people. Does that kind of make sense? In the outward light. Now, Emmanuel talked about perception, how people perceive you. Let what you exhibit out there be exactly who you are. Let it reflect that goodness that is within you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me quote this thing from David Founder. This is a professor of psychology at the University of California at Riverside. He said, what he said about concentrating on physical awareness can make you better at the social game. And you guys are going to be dating at some point. When you concentrate on your physical awareness, that physical persona, you'll be better at that social game. So not just appear anyhow. So you got to learn to control that. And what he said is, you will control, learning to train your visible. He said, learning to train your visible parts of your being, such as your voice, posture, clothes, or how you walk. You will control the impression you give, and your self-perception will be more accurate. So people can easily, to some extent, judge you accurately, because who you are inside, you are expressing that out on the outside. Does that kind of make sense? So, sometimes they say dress the way you want to be addressed. So if you want to be addressed as a responsible person, which is who you are, that's who you are, you're not going to show up wearing something that will question your character. So that is pretty much how to develop your self-awareness. And summary of the whole thing is, again, remember, attract. Attract means you want to be an agent of change. You want to make a change in the world. You want to be a role model to some people looking out for you. Just remember, you're not just here in this world by yourself. You're here. Somebody's looking at you. Somebody's watching you. Somebody wants to be like you at some point. So make sure that your self-awareness is intact. Make sure you know who you are, so that somebody out there will not define who you are. Or if they say something contrary to who you are, you say, nope, that's not me. And find out why they have that impression. And if there's something that you're doing wrongly, maybe sit back and change it. All right. So that's pretty much the sum total of this whole thing. Again, can somebody tell me what the A is on the ATRCT? What does A stand for? We have 1 minute. Rounding up. What does A stand for?
Assessment.
Assessment. Very good. What does T stand for? Triggers. Okay, triggers. Know what your triggers are. And know what your triggers are. Don't criticize yourself for it, just change it. And then what does R stands for? Regulate the triggers. Regulate. What does C stands for? Come on, y'all help me out. What does C stand for? Control. And then the last T stands for what? Tame. Okay?
Mhm.
All right. All right. Can you all give it to me again? What are the five? What is A?
I mean, assess. So
Assessment. Okay.
assess.